Alright, hello. This video will be showing you around the Aresonius, whatever this is pronounced. I will be showing the inside of the rocket, some of the nice things about it, along with how to do a manual landing on both the moon and Mars. So currently we are on Mars. First thing you'll notice is that this rocket is huge, and it is no easy challenge to land it, manually at least. So I'm just going to call the elevator. There are controls underneath here. So first you'll have to open the door. You have to press forward. That'll bring the elevator forward. And once it's out completely, you'll press up or down. And then it'll start sending it down. Right. Then this is the cargo bay or garage. This can extend or retract, and it comes with a personal rover. And yes, this rocket or lander has a lot of storage, so you could do long mining sessions for hours on end. One thing to note though is no matter how much cargo this thing is holding, it will despawn after 30 seconds if no one is riding it. So yeah, see? And it does have pretty small amounts of storage. It is nice though for getting from the rocket to like a habitat over there, but I'm going to show you that the lander itself is kind of a little habitat. So right here is the elevator. Yes, you have to use an elevator to get inside the rocket. So first thing we're going to do is just do the same thing we did to call it, but in reverse. So we're going to press up, and I'll start raising it up. And this will take a little bit of time, so just be patient. Oh, well, I just fell off. But yeah, that's one thing you're gonna have to be careful for is as you go up, it's going to slightly push you. I mean, it's not gonna push you. It's just not gonna keep you like against it, so you'll have to like walk slightly towards the back of it as it goes up, because if you haven't realized, the edge of the rocket is curved, and so that will have an effect on how the elevator functions. So I'm gonna speed up the footage so you don't have to like sit through all this again. Just give me a moment. As I go on now, you start to search your just mark it back as it goes up. If you have other people with you, I would recommend just having like too much time because it's not really elevator. So once you're at the airlock door here, you're going to click forward slash back. Now we'll bring it inside the airlock elevator, and then you'll press close. And that should seal the door. And you're just gonna press pressurize like with any other airlock. And then the nice thing about this lander is it is fully pressurized on the inside. And so with that, you should be able to remove your spacesuit once you're safely inside. Just be careful, because sometimes if you're like in stuff like this bathroom, if you get too close to the walls or jump and stuff like that, the game will think that you're in an unpressurized area, and so if you don't have a spacesuit, it will sort of kill you. So just keep that in mind. So there is a spacesuit here if you take it off. So we are going to go into our habitat section of the vessel. So this is sort of a secondary safety hatch in case if there's like a depressurization or whatnot. So you have a bunch of amenities here. There's like a countertop. You do have a nice window here. So let's say it actually looks like no one has taken a gem, but if you position your lander like this when you land, you'll have a nice view of the pyramid over here. along with, if you position your lander correctly, you will also have a few habitats around you too. So like, yeah, you see there's a habitat down there. One other thing is there is 3 bunks. Oh, someone's taking off. Anyways, there is 3 bunks. All are usable. The top one is a bit difficult to use, but you can even lay in them. There's one here. Let's close these up. And then up on the 3rd level is the control area where you would sit during takeoff, and then there are a bunch of options here. So if you want to play music, you can play music. If you want to raise or close your cargo hatch, you can do that from here. If you want to turn on your exterior lights, you can do that here. Just be careful if you're in a public server because other players can interact with these buttons. Yeah. That should be basically everything that's inside this lander. Just, you can use it as your own habitat. Just be careful of other players if they are approaching it. Because you cannot control the elevator when you're inside the vessel. So if someone tries to open it or whatnot, you can't control it. So yeah. Next I will show you how to basically do proper landing on both the moon and Mars. Alright, so first off, before we get started with the landing tutorial for the moon, I would highly recommend you at least get the teleport to moon ability. You can get this either through Game Pass or through in-game cash through the shop. But just so like if you mess up, you don't have to like wait for the whole launch sequence with this rocket here, because that takes forever. So just to make things easier, just get teleport to moon. It just makes it a lot quicker if you need to take multiple attempts. It also is good for practice if you need to get used to landing it. So let's just teleport to moon. That'll bring you straight to here. It's really useful for practice. So if you haven't already, you will need to purchase access to the lander. It will be right up here. The sign's covered because I already purchased it. But it will cost roughly around 1 million in-game cash. And you can do that. You can earn that money through either doing tasks on ISS, mining on both the moon and Mars, or doing cargo trips. The best way I found to earn it very quickly is doing those cargo trips on the moon, and I'll show you where you can do that once we land. So I'm just going to enter it, press yes, and then it'll give you 2 options for a manual landing or automatic landing. Obviously, for the sake of this video, I'm going to choose manual landing. And you'll just undock like this. And then what you're going to do as soon as you load in, well, that's, okay, that was an interesting view. But as soon as you load in, press Z. The controls for most of this stuff is going to be the same as Kerbal Space Program if you ever played that, but to start your engine, press Z. To stop it, press X. You can also use fine controls by holding down Control and Shift to go up. And I'm just going to set my flag real quick. And then I'd highly also recommend turning this on too, and switching to controls. Yep, there's our landing site as indicated by that marker. So once we get to roughly around 200 meters per second as indicated here, you're going to start throttling down so you don't miss the landing site. But yeah, as soon as you load in, activate your engines so you don't overshoot it. And as we descend, start slightly pitching so we get a slower descent rate, as these are kind of weak engines, and so if you start going down too fast, you will crash into the surface, and this thing is susceptible to blowing up from impact, so keep that in mind. So as we get closer, just mind your descent rate as indicated by altimeter here, along with your speed. So let's say maybe most of this though, I would say don't follow it by the book for landing procedures, because every time is going to be slightly different, and so do as you would with what's happening around you. So I'm going to actually cut the engines here. And then let's focus on our descent rate a little as we approach the landing site. Just, as I said, just be mindful of how fast you're approaching it. Try not to go too slow or too fast. Try to find that sweet spot. So right now we're a little bit too high. That's alright. We can work with that. So just be mindful of how fast you're going as you approach here. Just gonna actually probably reduce our speeds to 100 right now. Or 150, either one would work. Try to use as little fuel as possible, because you will need the rest of the fuel for getting back into orbit. So let's reduce it even further to 100 as we get closer here. So our descent rate's actually going into positive, so I'll pitch a little bit. There we go. Probably can just accelerate it a little bit. Let's make this go faster. Okay. So yeah, just be mindful of how fast you're going, and once you start going around maybe 20 meters per second, you can go vertical. It's like actually right now it would actually be good to go vertical. And then there are going to be thrusters you can use for fine tuning. So like if you hold down K, that'll start slowing down, and that'll like bring thrust in the opposite direction that we're traveling in. And so we're just gonna let gravity bring us down right for now. Just be careful of how fast you're descending, as again, as I said, the thrusters on this rocket are pretty weak in terms of slowing down your descent. So as we start going down faster and faster, I just periodically just engage them, do short bursts, just so you don't go down too fast. So you can pick any spot to land. That's the nice thing about when you're landing. And so what we're going to do is we're going to try to land near those habitats over there. So again, mind your descent rate, especially as you are approaching the landing site. So we're going to start going even slower just because of how close we are to the ground. And then you can press G to deploy your landing gears, as so. Then use to also go forward. And then start doing the fine tuning for the thrust. Try not to go too high as you descend. Just watch that thrust. So we're gonna try landing here. Seems like a flat spot. there might be a little bit of a lag spike as you get closer to ground. That's just it, loading the rocks and everything. So just be gentle as you approach the ground. Try not to come in too hard. And once you hit the ground, you're going to press X to cut off the engines. So you can even do prematurely, but this is good enough. And then we're going to do a quick level test by pressing T. That'll disactivate the SAS. And try to keep this little green dot within the white circle so it looks like we're actually a bit leaning to the right too much. That's fine. We can do what I call jump or hop. We're just going to take off very briefly and sort of do a hover. We're going to try finding a bit more flat ground. So like, let's try up here. When you're doing these hops, try to limit how much fuel you're using, because again, we need that for the exit. So let's see if this spot's a level now. And it does not look like we're level. So let's try it again. Let's take off. Let's try again. Let's see if this spot's good. Yeah, be careful when you're doing this, because if you're moving, you can tip a little. So this spot seems good. As long as it stays within a white circle, we should be good, and that's because of stuff like the elevator here, along with how the cargo bay down there will align. So once you're on the ground, you have a good level landing. I'm going to press R, and that's going to bring out the radiators. That'll help cool down the exterior as it's on the ground here. So yeah, it's immediately already starting to cool down. And due to how the lander sometimes can be, don't like lower it and open it through this menu. You're going to jump out, and there's, as I mentioned earlier, there's going to be like a little tablet you can use. So we're just going to not open the docking ports. We're going to lower the compartment. Wait a few seconds for it to lower. Then we're going to open the compartment hatch. And I'll open the garage down there. So yeah, that's how you land on the moon. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how to descend properly. So again, close the compartment hatch. Then raise it once it's closed. Yep, just like that. Then you're going to sit in the pilot seat. Make sure everything is closed before you start ascending. So I'm going to close the radiators. That includes radiators too. Then press T to engage SAS mode again. Then whenever you're ready, you're going to press Z. That'll bring the engines at full blast, and then press G to retract the landing gears. So as we're climbing, you're going to open this menu here, and you're going to slightly start aligning with a horizon. So I'm just going to see what reference we have to do, around 30 kilometers. So you're going to keep doing this until this number right here reaches 30, and then you're going to press X. So yeah, continue to pitch as you go up. And then we're going to do the engine cutoff right here. And just align with the horizon. Then while we're climbing up, you're just going to wait until you reach this altitude. And so we can do an orbital insertion. So right now we're sort of in the suborbit. So we're just going to wait till we're at that altitude to start our orbital burn. And as this notes, you have to be going 1665 meters per second for a stable orbit. Alright, we are starting to approach our altitude that we are going to start to need to do the burn at. And so, say, maybe around here we can start a burn by pressing Z again. Now we'll engage the engines again. And so, because this is in a stable orbit, you might want to pitch up a little bit just so we can sustain our altitude. Make sure not to do too much. Just sustaining your altitude and heading. So yeah, we're actually going to level off right here. So this should be good. Yeah, just keep accelerating. And as it shows here, the speed we wanted to achieve is around 1665 meters per second. So we're just going to wait here. And yeah, as we keep our burn, you might want to adjust your pitch a little bit as we do this. So this one actually is relatively short in terms of how long the burn takes. Okay, and so we are starting to approach our altitude, so we're going to level to horizon, or rather, we're approaching our speed. So yeah, just make sure you level to horizon when that happens, and then you just start to see this number jump up. When that happens, you can just cut off the engine completely. As long as it's above 30, you're good. And that's it. That's all you gotta do. And so you may notice we have some additional fuel. That's fine. It's mostly for when we're landing on Mars, because that will require a significant, much more amount of fuel. So once you're in orbit, you have a stable orbit, you might have a bit more here, that's fine. Don't worry about it. As long as you're in orbit, you can click this button here, and it'll bring you back to the gateway. And you can choose either to drop off resources here or return to Earth and drop it off there. You will get a bigger payout if you drop off at Earth. But I didn't have anything, so I'm just going to drop off here. Alright, so we're in the Martian Gateway Station. And so if you notice here, here's a better look at it. It's going to cost you about $1 million in-game cash to buy it. And so, as you'll see, landing on Mars is going to be a bit more of a challenge. And it'll make landing on the moon look like a cakewalk. So again, we're going to select manual landing. That'll cause us to undock here. And so as you spawn in here, just keep your current heading position. I'm just going to turn this on. Why not? Where is it? We're going to just position ourselves to maybe around 120 degrees here. That's because of the plasma. You don't have to do this, I just found better results if you do this. And then we're just gonna keep level here until we reach roughly around 80 kilometers here. That's around when re-entry starts. And so just keep this position heading, don't do anything until you reach about 80 kilometers. So now we are starting to approach the altitude for re-entry. And so you'll see this start to jump up when that happens, just like now. You're going to pitch up to around 40 degrees positive. Just be careful with your tilt and angle, so you may need to adjust it as you pitch up. Okay, so I'm just gonna wait here until re-entry finishes. So this will help us slow down a little bit as we get closer to the ground. And do be careful of this temperature because it can overheat. So that's why I'm at this angle, because sometimes a head-on approach will sometimes cause it to overheat. But as we start getting closer to the ground, the atmosphere is going to get thicker, and that's going to start slowing it down even more. So just let re-entry do its thing, and you should be fine. Okay, so as the plasma dissipates here, you're going to start immediately pitching up directly upwards and orientate yourself so the red line is pointing towards the left. You're going to sit like this until you can see the landing site marker right there, and then you're going to immediately start burning. I wouldn't wait to start the burn. I would immediately start as soon as you see that green marker. And especially be careful of your descent rate because it will be a little bit higher. So just have a little bit of a pitch angle like this. Because yeah, we are starting to descend pretty fast. So you may even need to go vertical, that's fine. Just make sure you don't hit the ground. Just like right now I actually have to go vertical to avoid hitting the ground here. So yeah, just make sure your descent rate is good, and you'll pitch back. Yeah, be careful with angling because it's a bit more sensitive on Mars. It's actually angle itself, we're starting to descend way too quickly. So you're gonna have to especially be mindful of your fuel consumption on Mars. Try to not use more than 75% of your fuel for landing. The rest is gonna be needed for your ascent back to orbit. And so as we approach the landing site here, we want to slow down a little bit more. And it looks like we're actually a bit too much to the right a bit, so we may need to do corrections. So being on Mars is nice because you actually get this little marker right here, and that'll show us how close we are to your landing site. So again, just like we did, we're going to do short bursts. Just watch your descent rate mainly. Actually, so maybe this is good. Again, try not to use too much fuel as you land here. Yeah, it's actually good to start going vertical now. I could actually probably use those thrusters on the side to go a little bit faster. Actually gonna start maintaining the hover now, getting closer. So again, you have those fine control RCS thrusters on the side. So you're actually starting to get pretty low here in terms of fuel, so watch your fuel consumption. We're gonna start deploying our landing gears here. So we're going to aim for that little ring of habitats and solar panels, because I found that usually gives me the best luck in terms of flat ground. There are other places you can land at too, but I found this to work the best. Again, be mindful of your fuel consumption. You might actually have to pitch a little bit here. So. I should start our descent now. Okay. A given level. Be careful your descent rate. Try not to hit too hard on the ground. And just press X when you're about to land, just like that. You may hop, that's fine. And then press T, check if you're level or not, and it looks like we are actually good for us to try. Just like that, we are landed. You can press R, track this, and all the other stuff you do once you land. So that would be none here on Mars, because there may be day or night cycle, and because there's an actual atmosphere, you can turn on the exterior lights. Now illuminate the bottom here, make it easier to see if it's night or if there's a dust storm. Also makes it easier to see the rocket too. And so once you're ready to leave, again, close everything and sit in the pilot seat. Make sure everything's closed. Retract the radiators. And then again, get this up. And so for our ascent into orbit for Mars, we are going to want to try to keep climbing until this number is at 140. And then as it says, our orbital speed will be needed at 3,480 meters per second. So when you're ready, press T, then press Z. Then press G to retract the end gears. And we're going to do a gravity pitch here. So get higher up. And we're just going to chill here. And so the orbital procedure you're going to need to do for Mars is going to take a lot longer because we need a faster orbital speed and a higher altitude compared to Mars. But just do everything you would as you would do for the Moon. You should be good. Just refer to the landing instructions for what numbers you need to use for the making sure you're at a proper orbit. So as we keep climbing here, just maintain current pitch. Right, so once it starts to approach 140, I'm gonna again cut engines and wait till you reach that altitude. To 60. And we're gonna level up the horizon here. And we're just gonna wait. So we're starting to approach our altitude here, so we're going to start our orbital insertion burn. So it's going to start jumping up again. Dead velocity. Here we go. Then just cut off the engines once it's at a stable orbit. There you go. So you take off and land on Mars. So yeah, see how low our fuel got. So be mindful of how much fuel you're using on the landing, especially on Mars. So once you're ready to return back, press this blue button right here. There you go. It's basically... Oh, one other thing is when you do land on Mars, you also get this badge here. This is for the Martian one. The first one up here is for either planet, but this one is specifically for Mars. So yeah. Thanks for watching. If you want to subscribe, you can. This is my first real video of me actually trying to do gameplay, commentary, tutorial, kind of stuff. So subscription would be quite helpful. Yeah, thanks for watching.